This was an interesting story.
Yeah.
I know I marked, I think everything for me, it fell in the beginning column. Did you guys have, but it looks like Eden, you have 8 for conflict.
I started with conflict, and my immediate thought is that it was a very weird conflict to have. But then when I'm looking at the rubric, it says conflict is either clear or interesting because of the strange time. It is clear what the problem is here. Yeah. The phone is gone. Right. I'm not lost, baffled as to what was the problem, what's going on. So I know what the problem is. It's very clear. It comes at a decent time where they get to the concert, and that's when she realizes that she doesn't have her phone. So I was trying not to think to myself about how ridiculous the conflict was. Right. But really just trying to focus on the fact that it was clear and it was introduced at an appropriate time, and it does drive all the action.
That's what I was just looking at.
The entire plot is driven with it. Granted, I don't find it to be interesting, and that's what stopped it from meeting. I kept it at the approaching there.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost like it's between an 8 and 8.5, because the conflict drives the entire plot of the story, which yes, it does, but I wouldn't say that it's interesting. So then you kind of have to go.
I have a question with that though.
Yeah.
Interesting to us and interesting to a teenager.
True.
Different things.
Right.
I guess to me, I was thinking purposeful. Like, would this actually happen?
Right.
And like, some guy's not going to steal your phone just to have you get it back.
Right. There would have been
without doing anything.
Yeah, there weren't any obstacles to create tension. Which to me, like, in order to create the tension, that's what's going to create interest.
Which kind of leads to the second one, is sequencing, because the sequencing was all very direct as well. You know what I mean? Like, it just leads into that next thing of it was all just really.
What were you going to say, Kirsten?
I was just saying, I also think that if we are going to count it as interesting, it's not, I don't think it fits the subtle portion of it. Like, it comes right out like, my phone's gone.
Right.
Oh, and so I think that even if, we were to think about interesting, it doesn't fit the subtle part of the meaning standard, because they explicitly tell us. I think one of the biggest problems with the sequencing, and maybe this is more conclusion, like I think it's hard because the story's so short to kind of separate those two things out, is it ends so quickly, which is both a sequencing problem, I think, and a conclusion problem.
Did we say what we would think about that for the conflict grade? Did we land somewhere just approaching?
I had them in approaching.
And I was 7 on beginning, but I can see your explanation, Eden, that conflict was either clear or interesting. Yeah, so I'd be comfortable with approaching.
For sequencing, or what you're mentioning, I kept it in beginning because chronological was the only one used, and there wasn't an attempt to add dialogue, which I think a couple of us been on that.
It just didn't come out.
Right. Sorry. There's some sections that I wrote. Dialogue would have made it so much richer, like especially in that beginning part. And then the attempt down here is made with dialogue, obviously not appropriately done, but it's at least made.
He tries to use some things to move the plot forward, like with transitions, like she agreed in that Saturday night. So like he's attempting kind of to sort of skip the boring parts, sort of, which we had talked about. So that's good. But I think.
But then there's these weird parts where it's like Grace heard a beep and just like that he hung up. The next morning, it's like what? That's really where you're jumping to? Because like that was confusing.
Because there he's not skipping.
He's skipping good stuff.
He's not skipping boring stuff. He's skipping good stuff. He's skipping.
She's not going to sleep right now.
Right.
This is a tension-filled moment.
So yeah, definitely beginning for sequencing. Is that what everyone had?
Yep. I had it at 7.5 because the attempt was made for dialogue. But I could go with beginning too.
I could see
So
the
maybe
7. Yeah.
I think like a 7.5, because if we look at this, an interesting or original idea for sequencing is used, but is confusing or unclear. Like I think his dialogue could have been interesting, but it is very confusing about where.
And it is purposeful. Yeah, because it is purposeful. It's not just random dialogue.
So maybe this is a punctuation problem and not a sequencing problem.
And that could come in with our grammar.
Yeah. So you're right. So 7.5 is probably more adequate for that.
Okay.
Vivid details?
I gave a 7.
I think there's very few.
There's attempts here and there.
Words.
Yeah, there are attempts.
Like tall, old, frightening house. You mean you could tell either somebody prompted him to do that, or
he randomly remembered.
Right, because it's in there every so often. Like you'll see, like where there's a attempted description.
Yeah, and he uses some good word choice, like Jan fired back with.
Yes.
You could be killed. It's like he didn't just say, and then she said.
Right.
It's like he really did attempt it every now and again.
Right.
But
So yeah, I mean very few vivid descriptive words. So they're
So
used.
7.
So 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Conclusion.
His
Ooh.
conclusion.
I give it a 9.
Really? Oh, I was like, well, this will be an interesting conversation.
I can't wait to hear that explanation.
I gave it a 7.5 actually.
I did too.
Mhm.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It's
cool.
somewhat confusing
Yeah.
or abrupt.
Because I think there was trying to be an attempt at I'm gonna make this a little like questioning or
Yeah.
exciting at the end.
Yeah.
It just didn't really make sense.
It didn't really make sense. It was just,
Right.
it was like, we get what you were trying to do, but that doesn't make sense.
But that's a whole different story, you know?
Yeah. So you could definitely tell
Dun, dun, dun,
they're
dun.
drawing on things that they've
Trying to
read
start
read
something
before.
It feels a
Right.
little like he's seen the movie Taken way too many times.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it was definitely what we've talked about. It was too abrupt.
Right.
It was just
Right.
like, bam, we're done. You had 30 minutes to finish.
Mhm.
But it was somewhat confusing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I almost felt like on the rubric it was exactly what the approaching proficiency was
The
explaining.
descriptors say. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Grammar, lots of mistakes.
I
had a
stopped
6.
circling halfway down the first page.
Yeah.
I actually gave it a 7.5 because I can be persuaded downwards, but what I was thinking of was a lot of these grammar mistakes are like he doesn't capitalize names,
Right.
and some of his commas are missing and things like that. It didn't make me pause though. I understood his meanings, and what I guess it kind of goes as to how I was taught with professional development in my old school about grammar was we can't focus on like the little nitty gritties. It really should be about understanding the meaning of the work.
Mhm.
And so when I look down here under approaching, it says demonstrates knowledge with some errors that begin to distract from meaning. So there were some moments where like when he didn't put a space between words where I had to pause for a second, but oh, there's no space. But the moments where it's the capitalization and things like that, I didn't struggle with the meaning there. It was really just the dialogue.
I think the dialogue for me is the biggest part
Yeah.
that's confusing,
Yeah.
and I still think that once you realize he's just not going to punctuate any dialogue, it's like you realize that, and then it's much easier to understand what he's saying. So it's definitely distracting,
Mhm.
but it's not. I don't think it's taking away from meaning. It's just distracting.
See, and I don't know, maybe it's just the grammar in me, but I feel like that is a serious error. Like at this point, freshmen in high
and we
school,
did explicitly teach it.
we explicitly taught dialogue rules, and then to not punctuate it that way, plus the commas, plus capitalization, plus no paragraphs, like to me, all of that adds up to serious errors in a freshman paper.
That's what
But
in my head I was thinking too, because it's a freshman, and because we
Yeah.
have to get them ready for what they're going to do as a sophomore. I mean, this is a standard for a freshman.
And
Right.
I'm
That's
very
why I put
honest,
him on a 6.
knowing the student's normal work, I don't think he proofread. I think he just turned it in.
Okay. I guess I could definitely see 6.5. I don't know about going too much lower than that because
Oh, no. Yeah.
I really did understand the story
Mhm.
just fine.
Right.
So
I'd be, following the rubric, like with our beginning, being 6 through 7, like I would strongly suggest being in that beginning column, but I'd be comfortable with a
Wherever somebody
7
puts
or
them.
6. Yeah, or like what a 6.5 or 7, wherever you see fit. I would like beginning is where I would do it.
yeah, I agree. I could do that. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe a 7 then?
Yeah.
Okay, for beginning. So we had an 8 for his conflict, right? 7.5 for sequencing techniques. 7 for imagery, was that
Mhm.
right? 7.5 for
Conclusion.
conclusion, and then 7 for grammar.
So even if everybody's numbers were slightly off, it doesn't really matter because we had them in the same.
In the same
Category.
category?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.